Hello everyone, and welcome to Spaces for Writing Part 2. Just to remind you, in the last lecture we talked about space and its many facets, right? And we talked about the space on the page and screen, the physical space in which we write both personal and public, right? And then also cognitive space, which is the space that exists in our brain that occupies all our thoughts, right? Which is a very oversimplified way of talking about what happens neurologically in our brains, of course. And I just want to apologize. There are fireworks going on in the background, which is pretty typical, but especially today. So I'll have to re-record this at a future date. Anyway, so there are other interpretations of space, one of which being the idea of public forums for writing, such as newspapers, journals, and books. And that is a more traditional form of public forum, right? But now we have even more possibilities through media. And within media, forums like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. Although now I'm thinking about it, I don't know if there's a lot of writing that has to go into TikTok, so maybe focus more on the Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But this is still writing, right? This is us choosing images or at least selecting a certain number of characters to communicate an idea. And perhaps it isn't as laborious as writing a research paper for a class, but it's still every bit as important in terms of communication and self-expression. And in a lot of ways, it forces us to play with the idea of audience a little bit more. And we'll get into that probably next week. But it also brings up questions regarding ownership, authorship, and some of the rules in which we follow when we think about different writing situations. So here we have a mural by Yemi Cabron, right? And in it, we have this amazing statement, right? We carry our parents' and grandparents' dreams. It's not just our voice, it's the voice of their sacrifices. They will never have the privilege that we have. And then it goes on. I feel like I'm missing some words that move under the freeway overpass. But this idea that once this is put out on a wall, right, it no longer is owned just by the creator, right? It's owned by the public. And the same thing can occur online, right? The minute we put a statement out or a tweet, right, those words can be taken from other people. And I guess that's something that was always the case, but it is particularly the case now in that we're able to share things so rapidly, right? And so the rules that we follow and the ways in which we think of our writing and the idea of a public forum are continuing to change as different, avenues of communication become more popular. But I think the one thing that we want to think about, or maybe it's more than one thing, is that idea that whether it's a formal class assignment or an everyday communication, considering the audience, or at least thinking about the audience at some point, maybe not necessarily letting that knowledge mold our words, but at least considering it, right, is key. And that each writing situation has its own demands and its own possibilities, right? And that the public self and the private self can be two different writing entities. And maybe in some cases there is some overlap, right? And so if we think about this picture, which I took last year at SMC's graduation, this graduate chose to put this on her cap. And what I find particularly interesting is that she, I'm sure, did it for herself, but she was also making a very public statement, right? Communicating to both those who believe in her and those who may not believe in her, that she was going to move forward and take ownership of her future and also articulate her viewpoint. And I think that's something that's so important for all of us to think about. And so then when we're looking at the three fundamental components of writing, and again, we'll continue to talk more about this, it's the message, the intention and the medium, right? The message is that initial idea that we're trying to communicate. The intention is the hope that we have and what the outcome will be, and the motive for which we put it forth, right? And then the medium in which we choose to communicate it. And writing in an academic setting, though an important aspect of writing, isn't the only ways in which we are authors. And so these rules apply, again, to both academic and personal situations. So that concludes our second lecture for the course.